Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Neat Talk on the Rocks. Tonight we are here with Jamie WINDON with LYON RUM. Our co-host of the night is Juan Calderon, who is a phenomenal bartender in Kentucky, if I have my information correct.
Yes, it is correct.
So, Jamie, welcome to the show, and what's going on? You're going to be talking to us today about three different versions of your rum specifically, and I can't wait to hear about it. We're going to be starting with the white rum. Is that you would call it, right? White rum? Yeah, silver rum?
Yep.
Just showing the camera. All right. You want to tell us a little bit about the white rum and what the process is to make it, and maybe the flavor profiles or anything like that? Your knowledge is all for us tonight.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Derek. I'm really looking forward to this, especially ever since meeting you. To know me is to know the rums that I make, so it's very important for me to be able to talk about what we do, and also, it's nice for you to have it in a glass at the same time. But I know that's not fair, because a lot of people that are listening right now do not have the rum in a glass. But I'll do my best to kind of paint you a picture of what we do and why it's so unique. About 8 years ago, I started a little rum distillery here in St. Michael's, Maryland, with the sole goal of making rum and trying to redefine and explore what American rum could be, what American rum is, and maybe the things that it isn't, right? But that deeper dive happened a few years in. So we're very much a nano distillery, and we started making 30 bottles of rum a week on two 26-gallon pot stills. Over the years, I have attracted and trained a wonderful team. So we're still very small, but we do everything by hand. I have seven members of my distilling team, and we have slightly bigger equipment now, but we're committed to pot distillation, American sugarcane, and trying to make the most interesting spirit that we can. So we really love rum. Full disclosure, in the early days, we did dabble in a few batches of Maryland rye whiskey and some really beautiful new make corn whiskey, just because it was a really great educational tool for people visiting our distillery to understand the spirits in all their contexts. Also, Maryland was known for Maryland style rye whiskey, and so it was a bit of a tip of the hat to our history. But rum is the first love, rum is the last love, and now for the last 4 years we've been solely focused 100% on making rum. So I was actually just in a panel a couple of weeks ago talking about American rum and what you call it, right? Do we call it white rum? Do we call it pot distilled rum? Do we call it silver rum? Like, why do we define rum by its color, right? It doesn't tell the consumer a lot about what it is to say, this is white, this is light, this is dark.
Absolutely.
And language is so important. Yeah, and it was funny because, we called it white rum because, silver rum really refers to a rum that has been, and Juan can speak to this in depth, I'm sure, it's a style of rum that's aged and then charcoal filtered, and so in that regard, you've already changed the spirit. Whereas a white rum, our rum is it's the moonshine of rum. It's unfiltered, it's unaged, it's essentially straight off the still, proofed, and then rested in stainless steel tanks. So it's a raw spirit, and calling it raw rum would have felt a little aggressive, I'm sure, but that's how I describe it. So we chose white rum. Just so people really knew that it was pure, and it is the base of every other spirit we do. So when you got your little rum kit, you got 6 mini rums, and they're all our core expressions. That the white rum is always the starting point, because the white rum is what we make every day. So the white rum is distilled from a hybrid fermentation of raw Louisiana sugarcane and molasses, and that was our kind of nod to many global styles of rum and trying to do our very American thing of blending together maybe the best of many worlds. You have your French agricole style rums that are made from raw sugarcane juice, that are very grassy and robust and fresh and light. And then you have your heavier molasses-based pot distilled rums that are very full and fragrant and rich. And so there are many styles of rum in between, but those kind of represent two ends of the rum spectrum, which are wildly different. And so we thought the most American thing we could do to pay tribute to that would be to blend a little bit of the best of both. So by using the raw sugar cane, which comes to us and looks like wet sand, we use a mill in Louisiana that is all Louisiana grown sugar cane. And so that bit of that sugar cane juice that's clinging to those crystals, that provides just a hint, a nose of that agricole whiff onto the rum, whereas the molasses gives it a nice, creamy, smooth mouthfeel. So we do a classic double distillation. Our pot stills have no reflux. We now have a 500-gallon stripping still and a series of 5 26-gallon little pot stills, 2 of which were our original stills that we just ran everything through twice. So what the pot distillation does is it really hones all that flavor. So people that don't know rum, people that might not appreciate rum, maybe they assume that white rum is just kind of a sweet, neutral vodka-y drink. The what's in your glass, Derek, is very much not. It's incredibly aromatic. That sugar cane is present right away on the nose. In fact, people who are new to our rum and aren't familiar with agricole style often say, I think something's wrong with your rum. It smells like tequila. I know you're in Maryland. Maybe you don't know how to read rum.
No. Actually, I was literally just gonna say, when I brought it to the nose, one of the first, I got the sweet of the sugar, but one of the first things that I picked up on is and I know that you had actually talked about this at a different time to me about the tequila story with the white rum. I got it immediately, not tequila, but almost like tequila essence of some kind to the nose. But then when you taste it, almost a completely different thing happens from what you're smelling to what you're tasting.
Completely different, right? And that's really cool. And the funny thing is, anyone who loves and knows tequila doesn't think my rum smells like tequila at all. But the thing is, a lot of drinkers, have really no reference point for a white spirit that has a ton of character, right? So unless they've spent time appreciating ouzo and grappa and maybe some, clear brandies, they just think that white spirit shouldn't smell like anything except tequila. A lot of people have experience with tequila, sometimes not in the most refined form. So that's just a familiar note, and that's where we can use it as an educational tool, and we can say, hey, what you're smelling there, that ain't tequila, that's Louisiana sugar cane, and we did that on purpose. So that's the break cane coming through. I just poured myself some because I can't talk about it this long and not drink it.
Absolutely.
It's just a beautiful spirit. It does have it's really soft mouthfeel, really creamy. We do a pretty mellow fermentation. We use a champagne yeast. We are not yeast nerds. We did not dive down into all the myriad of beautiful yeast that can do lots of things. Champagne yeast is great at doing its job and preserving the delicacy of the sugar cane. Doesn't bury it. Our rum fermentations are not controlled. We're in an old flour mill. Sometimes it's very hot in the distillery. Sometimes it's very cold. The fermentations are affected by that. But the rum is. The white rum is my favorite rum in the world, and it's my favorite thing we make, of course. I won't say it's the most popular one we make because they just get more flavorful and delicious from here. We add time in a barrel or infusions, and some of the other things we do. But the people that love our white rum, I really love those people.
Craft.
Brings the meaning craft to a whole new level.
That was different. My biceps were different. I had an appreciation. So in that regard, rum's super easy. I just mix some sugar together. But I would joke because the art isn't in that physicality, right? So nowadays we do a big, beautiful, fancy mash tun. Ironically, I bought it a week before I decided to stop making whiskey. But it's great. It gets that molasses dissolved in no time. But the irony, right? So no, obviously the fermentation is much, in my opinion, based on how we do things, the fermentation for rye whiskey was much, much, much more fickle than our rum has ever been. We experiment with a lot of different yeasts. started making whiskey. And then, of course, I always just felt like, personally, I never really jived with making the cuts on the whiskey. Like, I didn't love it. I didn't feel it. I didn't sense it. And to be fair, I don't run the stills every day anymore. I have, 3 talented distillers that have taken that over and that love it. But making a rum cut, I can walk in there and tell you right away on our rum if it's too headsy, if it's time to cut to tails. Like, but the whiskey just never. The process eluded me a little more. It just didn't. It wasn't in my blood.
And the world thanks you for that. Your rum is so far excellent. I like it. Before we dive into the Sailor's Reserve,